fight-or-flight nervous system, when you hear it or when you play it, so you can imagine if I played that for a while, I mean, you start just relaxing, which in some ways, you know, I think about the medical profession and doctors, and how often do doctors make you relax? It's very seldom. It's like the opposite. And didgeridoo can do that almost immediately, especially if you start training yourself. Then the minute you hear it, you're like, okay. I had somebody I was working with, he was doing neck surgery, and he wanted me to work with him up to the neck surgery and then after the neck surgery. And he trained himself that way. As soon as he heard the beginning of it, his whole body just completely let go. So I like to say that letting go is the hugest piece of playing didgeridoo, and it comes all the way back from the Aboriginal people who came up with this whole thing. So that's in Australia, it's an ancient instrument. It's probably the lowest tech instrument in the world because it's simply an empty tube. I mean, there is nothing in there. So, and when they played it, they were playing eucalyptus, hollowed out by termites. And that is a very heavy, heavy wood. And they were hunter-gatherers. So they didn't just make a didgeridoo, get really attached to it, and then drag it with them everywhere they went. They would leave it and assume that another one would come when they needed it, wherever they were. So it's a practice, it's a letting go practice, and it's letting go all the way along, from the beginning, just to try to make a sound, to relax the lips, to let go of your self-consciousness, to become like a kid. So I was just talking about Andrei Schmikl a little bit ago. He's from the Czech Republic, and he's, performance-wise, I would say the best didgeridoo performer in the world. And he learned as a kid. When he was something like 10 years old, his parents were remodeling their bathroom, and there was PVC around. And he didn't even know there was such a thing as a didgeridoo. He had, he'd never heard the word, he never knew it, but he started playing, and he started getting all kinds of wild sounds. And to this day, he's still at the edge of making new sounds and coming up with stuff. He's just unbelievably wonderful performer. He hasn't been coming to the Bay Area lately, unfortunately, but we're gonna maybe try to get him back, because he's really, really good. But that's the kind of attitude to have, that childlike, what can this thing do? You know, it can make a big trumpet sound, it can make all these animal sounds. The Aboriginal people actually used it for ritual and for hunting. So they would make the sounds of animals, like the night before a hunt, and people would dance as if they were the animals to try to get into their heads so that the next day they could find out where they were. So, so there's a lot of animal sounds that can come out of the didgeridoo. So, let's see. Oh, and then the breathing through the nose thing. So some people habitually breathe through the mouth, which bypasses the nasal passages, which I am so enthralled with, because they are the biggest producer of nitric oxide that there is in the body. And nitric oxide is this neurotransmitter that regulates pH, it regulates blood flow, it regulates communications to the brain. It is so crucial. And so breathing through the nose, and I think, this is speculation, I want to make sure you know this is hypothesis, that circular breathing enhances that production of nitric oxide. And I think it's because when you're circular breathing, you're doing a motion that's kind of palpating the nasal passages. It's spreading and kind of pushing on the nasal passages, and I think it's creating more. But the problem with knowing any of this stuff is that there's no money in didgeridoo. You can use cardboard tubes with funny little napkin rings on them to make a didgeridoo. You can use so many different things. You can play seaweed, you can play bamboo, you can play, there's just not like a huge amount of money, so grant makers are not inclined to give grants to this kind of research, which is really unfortunate because there are so many things that it addresses, including, I think I made a list here somewhere. So some people have said, let's see, where is that? That it has helped tinnitus, TMJ, asthma, sleep apnea, of course, anxiety for sure. I've had people who just use it instead of tranquilizers and said they got basically the same effect with no side effects.